Good evening and welcome to our channel, Fall Asleep to History. Tonight, we're getting into the fascinating world of the Roman Empire. As always, let me know where in the world you're listening from. And thank you for joining me tonight, as we journey softly through time, back to one of the most extraordinary chapters in human history. But tonight, it isn't told with the clash of swords or the roar of the Colosseum crowds. Instead, we'll drift gently through the centuries, floating like quiet ghosts along the Tiber River, watching the rise of a world that shaped so much of our own. So, settle in. Take a slow, gentle breath in and let it drift out again. Make yourself comfortable. Let your body loosen. Allow your shoulders to soften. Let your thoughts slow. Let the pace of the modern world fade into the distance. Tonight, you don't need to be anywhere else, only here, listening to the quiet echoes of Rome. Imagine now, a soft dawn over the hills of ancient Italy. The first light touches the tops of olive trees, and morning mist curls over the gentle flow of the Tiber River. It's around the 8th century before the Common Era. The air carries the crisp scent of pine and earth, and in the distance, smoke rises from small clay huts on 7 hills. This is where it all began. Not yet marble and empire, but mud and hope. A few shepherds, a few farmers, and among them, the seeds of something far larger than they could ever imagine. The founding myth. Listen closely, and you might hear the story that those early Romans whispered to one another as they warmed themselves by the fire. It was said that twin brothers, Romulus and Remus, were born of a divine bloodline. Their mother, a princess named Rhea Silvia, and their father, the god Mars himself. The twins, abandoned as infants, were left by the river to die. But the world had other plans. A she-wolf found them, and the wild creature nursed them in her den, protecting the fragile spark of destiny that flickered within them. Years passed, and when the brothers grew strong, they decided to build a city that would carry their story forward through time. But like many legends, it did not end peacefully. A disagreement rose between them about where the city should stand. In anger, Romulus struck down his brother, and so, under a blood-red sky, he named the newborn city after himself, Rome. It was a myth, yes, but within that myth pulsed the spirit that would shape Roman identity forever. A fierce sense of destiny, of survival, and of divine purpose. Now imagine yourself standing on one of those 7 hills, perhaps the Palatine, where Romulus was said to have built his small fort of logs. The sounds are in simpler times, the murmur of livestock, children playing, women grinding grain by hand, the hum of the river below. No emperors yet, no legions, just life, quiet and immediate. Slowly, over the decades, that small hilltop village began to grow. Neighbors traded grain, pottery, salt, and iron. Paths became roads, wood became stone, and soon Rome stood out among the other settlements of the Latin tribes, the rise of the Republic. As night falls in our story, we drift forward a few centuries, to around 509 BCE. The people of Rome have grown strong, and they've grown tired of kings. Their last monarch, Tarquin the Proud, had ruled with arrogance and cruelty, and so the Romans rose against him, casting out monarchy once and for all. They founded something new, a res publica, a public thing, the Roman Republic. It was a bold experiment in balanced power. Shared leadership through elected officials called consuls, laws debated by the Senate, a gathering of the city's elders and wealthy families. No one man, they swore, would ever again hold absolute power. And that promise, that fragile idea, would guide Rome for nearly 500 years. Close your eyes for a moment and picture the streets of early Republican Rome. They're still dusty, still narrow, but the energy in the air has changed. There's talk of philosophy and law, of alliances and expansion. Merchants call out their wares in the forum. Children chase one another around columns that have just begun to rise. Late in the evening, oil lamps glow behind wooden shutters, and families gather over simple meals. Bread, olives, wine. The hum of the city is like a heartbeat, steady, restless, alive. A dream that grew too fast. Rome begins to stretch outward now, pressing beyond its hills, beyond its homeland. First, it allies, then conquers. Neighboring tribes, defeated enemies, and yet, many become Romans themselves. This was part of Rome's quiet genius, to take in those it conquered, to blend them into something larger. Roads begin to cut through forests and valleys. Roman soldiers march in their thousands, their sandals raising small clouds of dust that seem to hang in the air long after they've passed. Step by step, they expand outward, to the Italian peninsula, to the islands of the Mediterranean, and eventually to lands far beyond. In the early glow of the Republic, before the storms of ambition and empire begin. Listen for the sound of the river once more. It whispers softly through the centuries, carrying with it the reflections of an empire yet to come. Let that sound lull you gently, and drift, if you like, into sleep, peaceful and unhurried. As the story of Rome continues to unfold in the quiet corners of your dreams, the night deepens now. The lamp burns low beside you, the room is quiet, and as you breathe softly, we drift forward through centuries, past the dawn of the Republic, into an age of unrest, ambition, and greatness. Rome is no longer a simple city of shepherds. It has become something far more complicated, a restless, growing power, stretching its fingers across the Mediterranean world. By the 3rd century before the Common Era, the Republic commands much of Italy, and yet peace is never quite enough for Rome. The Mediterranean Wars. To the west lies another rising power, Carthage, a city of sailors and traders, ruled by wealthy families and guarded by a navy unmatched in strength. At first, Rome and Carthage trade, nodding politely across the sea, but ambition never rests easily. So began the long struggle known as the Punic Wars, 3 great conflicts that would decide who would shape the ancient world. Imagine the quiet before the first battle. Sea winds stir the canvas of Roman sails. Men whisper prayers to the gods, their faces lit by flickering torches. When dawn breaks, the sound of oars fills the air. Hundreds, then thousands, pulling in perfect rhythm. The wars with Carthage last more than a century. They are marked by triumph and tragedy, none more famous than the journey of Hannibal, the Carthaginian general who crossed the Alps with elephants at his side. Picture that in your mind, snow falling softly over towering peaks, warriors wrapped in furs, elephants lumbering slowly through white silence. Though Hannibal wins battles, he cannot win the war. Rome, with its tireless determination, eventually grinds down Carthage until nothing remains. By 146 BCE, Carthage is gone, its people scattered, its city leveled, the expansion of Rome. Now the Mediterranean truly becomes a Roman lake. Ships with crimson sails move from port to port. Grain from Egypt, wine from Spain, silver from Greece, and exotic spices from the distant east all flow through Roman hands. The Republic, once humble, now holds unimaginable power, and yet something fragile begins to crack within it. Wealth gathers in the hands of a few. Families of old nobility, the patricians, grow even richer, while the common people, the plebeians, struggle under taxes, debt, and war fatigue. Whispers grow in the forum. The Senate debates loudly by day, but at night, torches burn low over private conspiracies. The Republic begins to bend under its own weight. The rise of the generals. Out of this strain rise new figures, men of charisma, of military glory, of boundless ambition. First come the reformers, like the Gracchi brothers, who dream of sharing land with the poor. Their words are hopeful, their intentions noble. But Rome has little patience for idealists. Both are killed. A grim warning of how violent politics has become. From there, the city falls into the hands of generals, Marius and Sulla, rivals whose army clash not on distant fields, but within the streets of Rome itself. Imagine it. The echo of iron boots in marble courtyards, smoke rising from temples once thought sacred. For the first time, Romans are killing Romans, and the Republic trembles. Out of this chaos emerges a young man, from an old but modest family, Gaius Julius Caesar. Julius Caesar. Even his name feels heavy with destiny. He is brilliant, charming, clever enough to outmaneuver his enemies, and bold enough to chase power others only dream of. He begins as a soldier in Gaul, modern-day France, where for years he leads campaigns that expand Rome's borders farther than ever before. By day, he commands legions. By night, he writes letters to the Senate, eloquent, persuasive, carefully preparing his next move. As he conquers tribes and territories, his fame in Rome grows. Crowds cheer his victories. Rivals fear his return. When at last the Senate orders him to give up his command and come home, he hesitates beside a narrow river in northern Italy, the Rubicon. Crossing it would mean war. Staying behind would mean surrender. In the hush of that eternal moment, as water laps at his sandals, Caesar whispers his decision. The die is cast. He leads his men across, and Rome enters another storm. The fall of the Republic. Civil war follows, echoing through cities and plains. For years, Caesar outmaneuvers his enemies until he stands alone. Victorious, idolized by the people and distrusted by the Senate. He reforms government, pardons his rivals, and rules with unmatched confidence. But ambition, no matter how well masked, breeds suspicion. And so, on the Ides of March, March 15th, 44 BCE, Caesar walks into the Senate chamber, greeted by familiar faces. Torches flicker, voices murmur. Then, a sudden flash of silver. A betrayal that shakes the very air. When it ends, Caesar lies still upon the marble floor, his robe stained red. The Republic breathed its last. For days afterward, the city is silent. The crowds whisper his name, the senators hide, and fate moves quietly once more, choosing its next figure. The birth of an empire. From the ashes of that broken republic rises Caesar's heir, a young, careful man named Octavian, later known as Augustus. Where his adoptive father was bold and theatrical, Augustus is patient, deliberate. He waits, he plans, he builds alliances. Through diplomacy, cleverness, and occasionally quiet ruthlessness, he gathers all power into his own hands, while pretending he has none. By 27 BCE, the Senate hails him princeps, the first citizen. But in truth, he is Rome's first emperor. Picture Rome now, at the height of her transformation. The smell of incense drifts through the temple of Jupiter. The marble streets gleam after rain. Fountains murmur in courtyards. Citizens stroll through the forum, unaware of how vast their world has become. Ships return from the farthest provinces, carrying treasures and tales. Bridges span rivers once thought endless. Legions stand guard from the sands of Egypt to the forests of Germania. Rome has become eternal, or so it seems. As you drift deeper into rest, imagine the soft calm of the Pax Romana, the Roman peace that follows Augustus's rule, an empire of roads, laws, and marble cities. A world united under one name, one order, one dream. The rivers of history flow quietly onward, and for tonight, you can follow them only as far as your dreams allow. Let the images fade, the marble, the torches, the gentle waters of the Tiber. The empire sleeps. And so can you. The night is still. Only the faint hum of the world remains. And now, together, we wander softly into the heart of Rome itself, the living, breathing capital of an empire. Close your eyes if you wish. Imagine sunlight rising over marble rooftops, its light turning columns gold and shadows long. The city stretches before you, layers upon layers of stone, built over centuries. Each street a story, each doorway a memory. You can hear the city's slow awakening. A cart creaks over cobblestones. Somewhere far off, a blacksmith begins to hammer. Doves stir beneath the eaves of temples. From the Palatine Hill, you can see everything. The curve of the Colosseum, the crown of the Capitoline temples, the straight lines of roads that could carry a traveller all the way to the edges of the empire. Rome is alive. And yet, this morning, it breathes quietly. A day in Rome. Imagine walking slowly through the streets. The air is warm, smelling faintly of dust and bread, baking in clay ovens. Vendors are setting up their stalls in the forum, spreading figs, olives, and spices in neat rows. The murmur of conversation rises and falls like the sea. Voices bartering, laughing, calling to one another. At a fountain, a boy fills clay pitchers for his family. Nearby, two old philosophers whisper softly, arguing not with anger, but with curiosity about virtue, about the gods, about the stars. Everywhere there is motion, but never haste. In Rome, time feels heavy and endless, the Roman home. Let's step quietly into a Roman house, a modest one, perhaps, belonging to a merchant or teacher. The doorway opens into a cool atrium. Sunlight spills in from a small square opening in the roof, where rainwater collects in a shallow basin below, the impluvium. The air smells faintly of wax, oil, and flowers. Mosaics cover the floor, each tile small enough to fit beneath a fingernail. At the far end of the home, there's a small garden where ivy climbs the walls and the sound of trickling water fills the air. In the corner, a family shrine holds tiny statues, the lares and penates, the spirits of home and hearth. Before leaving for the day, a quiet prayer is offered, a whispered thanks for safety, for warmth, for another sunrise. Outside, the streets grow busier. A senator passes by in his pure white toga. Children follow behind, pretending to debate or like the grown-ups in the forum. Near the baths, the sound of laughter echoes. The Roman baths. Baths, for the Romans, are not just for washing. They are where life unfolds. Men and women visit at different hours, each bringing oils, towels, and stories. Inside, the air is warm and fragrant. Steam rises from the caldarium, while in the frigidarium, the cool pool shimmers like pale glass. Friends greet one another. Business deals are whispered between dips in the water. Children splash and giggle, their echoes caught in the domed ceilings. You move slowly through the rooms, feeling the gentle warmth on your skin, the calm voices, the rhythm of footsteps on marble. It feels peaceful, timeless, as if the entire empire paused each afternoon, just to breathe, food and rest. Later, when daylight fades, the smells of dinner drift through the city. In the homes of the wealthy, tables are low and reclined upon couches. Dishes arrive in slow procession, fresh bread, olives, honeyed fruits, and wine diluted carefully with water. For those with simpler means, there are small shops along the streets, called thermopolia, serving warm stews and porridge to travellers and labourers alike. The conversations are soft, the laughter easy, and the day unwinds in flickering lamplight. Every meal, great or small, is accompanied by stories of family, of ancestors, of the great city itself. Night in Rome. As the sky deepens to velvet, the hum of the city grows quieter. Temples glow with oil lamps, the air cools. Carts retreat to the stables. Even the fountains seem to whisper more softly. From the high terraces, you can see the scattered light of thousands of lamps. Each one, a tiny flame of life, within an empire of stone. Guards walk their slow rounds along the walls. Dogs bark occasionally in the distance, and over it all, a gentle wind moves through the streets, whispering stories of victories, of prayers, of lives intertwined. Rome sleeps, resting upon its hills, dreaming of the dawn yet to come, a city of many worlds. Though the empire is vast, every corner of it feels tied to this heart, the eternal city. Ships sail north, to the misty islands of Britannia, east, to the golden deserts of Egypt, south, to the rich lands of Africa, and west, to the distant shores of Hispania and Gaul. Each carries its own people, its own gods, its own voices, and yet all roads, as they say, lead back to Rome. The streets at dawn. Before we drift towards sleep again, picture one last moment. The first hint of dawn touches the rooftops. A baker yawns and lights his fire. Smoke curls gently into the pale sky. Somewhere, a rooster calls. its echo crossing courtyards and markets. Children will soon rise, the city will stir again. Rome will begin another day, as it has for centuries, patient, powerful, and quietly eternal. Take a slow breath, let it fill your chest, and release. The marble fades, the laughter fades, and what remains is only stillness. You're safe, you're calm, you're drifting, somewhere between the present and the distant hum of history. The fire burns low, the night air is cool, and somewhere, faintly, you can almost hear it, the sound of footsteps on ancient roads, measured, steady, endless. They belong to the men of Rome's legions, the silent rhythm of an empire on the move, the march of the legion. Close your eyes for a moment and imagine a horizon of pale gold and blue. A line of soldiers moves slowly across it, their shields gleaming in the first light of dawn, their breath visible in the cold morning air. Each man carries his world upon his shoulders. Armor, tools, rations, the weight of discipline, the faith that the gods walk beside them. The centurion at the front paces with a calm that comes from years of training. He doesn't shout, he doesn't hurry. The march is its own ritual. One step, one heartbeat, one empire. Their sandals press softly into dust, and as they move, you can almost feel the earth itself hum with their rhythm, discipline and order. Rome's legions are not wild or reckless. They are instruments of order, built on patience and precision. Each soldier knows where to stand, how to fight, how to build a camp before nightfall. When they stop, the transformation is quiet and swift. Tents rise in perfect rows, fires glow along a grid, walls of earth and timber appear in the space of an hour. Even in the farthest wilderness, the Romans recreate their city. A small living reflection of Rome itself. It is said that with discipline alone, they conquered half the world. But beneath that discipline, there are still hearts. Men who miss their homes, who dream of families across the sea, who whisper to the stars before they fall asleep. The frontier. Now, the roads fade into forests. The empire stretches farther than anyone once imagined. North into mist and shadow. East toward deserts where the horizon never ends. In Germania, the woods are dark, the rivers wide and cold. Torches flicker in the deep green silence. In Egypt, heat shimmers against the sand. Soldiers guard temples older than memory, their armor glinting beneath the sun. And far to the north, in the lonely hills of Britannia, wind brushes over stone walls, frontiers that mark the edge of the known world. Here stands Hadrian's Wall, a ribbon of stone and grass, built not only to keep invaders out, but to remind the empire where it ends. At night, under the quiet of foreign stars, a Roman soldier looks out across the darkness. He hears the distant howl of wolves, smells the wet earth after rain, and feels both pride and distance from the glittering city thousands of miles away. Life on the march, even on the road. The legions carry pieces of home. Small shrines are built in camps. Figures of Jupiter or Mars placed carefully beside the fire. Letters are read by torchlight, folded and tucked away like treasures. When they rest, the men share soft laughter. They mend gear. They trade stories of cities they've never seen, of marble baths, of markets filled with music, of the endless blue of the Mediterranean, an army that marches upon dreams as much as steel. The engineers of empire. The legions are not only soldiers, they are builders. The roads they carve stretch across continents, so straight and sure that many still exist today. Stone bridges curve gracefully over rivers, carrying merchants, travellers, and messengers of distant provinces. Aqueducts, great channels of water, flow like veins toward the heart of Rome, bringing life to baths, gardens, and fountains. Everywhere they go, the soldiers leave behind more than conquest. They leave the foundations of civilization itself, the borders of peace. Though conquest defined much of Rome's early strength, there came a time when its greatest triumph was not in new battles won, but in the peace it maintained. The Pax Romana, the Roman peace. A time when ships could sail from one corner of the world to another, beneath the same laws or the same language, the same sense of safety. Merchants travelled roads lined with milestones. Farmers tended their fields without fear of invaders. Scholars exchanged ideas between cities. An unseen harmony spread across mountains and seas. An empire not just of power, but of connection. Voices of the provinces. In the distant east, Greek philosophers continue their debates beneath colonnades. In the deserts of Syria, merchants sell silks carried by camel caravans. In Gaul, children learn Latin songs in schools built beside vineyards. In North Africa, olive groves shimmer silver under the afternoon sun. Each province adds its own language, its own customs, its own heartbeat to the empire, a chorus of voices speaking softly together beneath the vast Roman sky. The return home. Eventually, the soldiers return, their faces weathered, their armour worn smooth with use. The gates of Rome greet them with triumph, crowds cheering, petals scattered, trumpets sounding through the streets. But even in celebration, there is calm now. They are tired, wiser, and eager to rest. That night, as the city glows beneath 1,000 lamps, they sleep deeply for the first time in years, no longer listening for the command to march. The silence. Between the stones, centuries later, the roads remain. The walls crumble slowly back to earth. But if you walk there, even now, and close your eyes, you might still feel it. That faint echo of countless footsteps, fading into history. The legions are gone, but the rhythm of their march still beats softly in the world they left behind. Breathe deeply now, in and out. Let the sound of imaginary footsteps fade into the quiet pulse of your own heartbeat. The empire stands vast and dreamlike in your mind, stretching across centuries, endless and serene. Tonight, let that stillness carry you to rest. Let it be your road home. The night grows softer still. The wind outside has slowed, and within this quiet, we move deeper into the soul of Rome itself. The empire was not just built of stone and law, it was built of spirit, a faith that gods walked beside every human being, that the world was alive with meaning. Tonight, we drift through marble halls and quiet temples to listen to that ancient heartbeat, steady, luminous, eternal. The presence of the gods. In Rome, divinity is everywhere. There is no line between sacred and ordinary. Every threshold, every hearth, every harvest belongs to a god. The Romans do not pray with fear, They pray with familiarity, as one might greet a friend passing on the street. When a child is born, a blessing is murmured to Juno, protector of mothers. When travelers leave the city, they call upon Mercury, swift guardian of roads. When thunder shakes the sky, they bow their heads to Jupiter, his voice rolling across the heavens. It is not one god they serve, but a fellowship of powers, woven so softly into their lives that faith feels less like worship and more like conversation. The temples. Now imagine walking through the forum once more, but this time you notice the temples. They rise in silence, their white columns catching the morning light. Steps of marble gleam where priests' sandals once brushed the stone. Inside, the air is cool and still. Incense curls upward like smoke caught in slow motion. The scent is sweet, like cedar and honey. You can hear only the faintest sounds, the crackle of lamps burning olive oil, the rustle of robes as an offering is laid upon the altar, the murmur of a prayer that has echoed for centuries. Each temple is a universe of peace, and yet together they form the heart of a city that believed heaven and earth were never truly apart. The festivals. Faith in Rome was not only solemn, it was joyous. There were days when work stopped, when streets filled with garlands and song, the Saturnalia, perhaps the most beloved, a festival of gifts and laughter, when masters dined with servants, and the world turned upside down for a while. Flames flickered through every home, voices mingled in the night air, and for a brief time, the divisions of society disappeared under garlands of ivy and joy. Another night, torches wound their way through the city during the Lemuria to honor spirits of the dead, a whisper of remembrance, a gentle calling home. The Romans celebrated life in endless rhythm, birth and death, planting and harvest, season after season, always in harmony with the gods who watched, art and beauty. But their worship was not only in temples, it was in everything they touched. The sculptor, carving marble until it breathed. The painter, laying pigments that glowed in soft morning light. The poet, weaving verses that drifted from lips to hearts, like gentle waves on the Tiber. Rome's art did not chase perfection. It found it quietly, in the calm grace of the human form, in the simple curve of a bowl, in a mosaic floor that shimmered like water. Beauty was not vanity. It was devotion, a way to reflect the divine, the language of stone. Every pillar, every arch, every dome spoke the Romans' silent prayer for eternity. They built for time itself, each structure a promise that their name, their ideas, their gods would not fade. When sunlight moved across the ruins, it danced in quiet conversation with the past. Even now, centuries later, those same shadows linger, falling across the same carved names, repeating what words can't, the whisper of the poets. In the age of Augustus, art and faith intertwined. Poets sat beneath olive trees, writing verses that shaped how Rome saw itself. They wrote of duty and destiny, of love and loss, of empires and eternity. From these soft words, new myths were born, of heroes guided by gods, of journeys through unknown worlds. Even in their grandeur, the poems feel quiet, as though each line is a lullaby to the city itself. Their words still float like dust in sunlight, gently reminding us that every empire begins as a dream. the mystery of the beyond. For all their confidence, the Romans also carried a tender curiosity about death, about where the soul might wander. Their tombs stand not in fear, but as places of memory and conversation. Families visit with flowers. Children trace names on marble. They speak to their dead as if they still lived nearby, not gone, just distant. For the Romans, nothing truly ended. Every life, every story, folded quietly into the vastness of time, like ripples in an endless river, the eternal flame, in the center of Rome, near the Forum, burned a sacred fire, the flame of Vesta. It never went out. Tended by priestesses called the Vestal Virgins, it symbolized the life of the city itself. When citizens passed the shrine, they often paused, just for a moment, to bow their heads and feel the warmth on their faces. In that flame they found comfort, a reminder that as long as it burned, Rome endured, faith beyond the gods. As centuries pass, new ideas begin to stir, stories of a single God, of compassion, of redemption. These thoughts arrive softly from distant provinces, spoken in small gatherings beneath candlelight. Rome listens, cautiously, then curiously. The old gods still stand, but the world is changing. Without anger, without noise, a transformation begins, one that will reshape the spirit of the empire itself. Breathe deeply again, in and out. Let the scent of incense linger in your imagination, the quiet hum of prayer, the flicker of marble fires in the dark. The gods, the poets, the sculptors, they all fade gently into memory, but their sense of wonder, their reverence for life, still glows softly through time. For a civilization that chased eternity, this was its truest heartbeat. The night is deeper now. The air is still. And somewhere, far in the distance, you can almost hear the slow turning of the world, the gentle winding down of an age. The empire that once seemed eternal has reached its dusk. But do not imagine sudden ruin or fire. No, it is quieter than that. It fades like the light at the end of day, soft, steady, beautiful in its surrender. The weight of the years. Centuries have passed since the first stone was placed on Rome's 7 hills. The city has grown and aged, its marble weathered, its streets lined with memories. The armies that once marched across continents now guard borders that are harder to hold. The emperors change quickly, some wise, some cruel, some whose names barely survive in whispers. Still, the routines of life go on. Markets open, children play. The Tiber flows quietly through the city. But the edges of the empire have become fragile. There, in the far provinces, the wind carries new sounds, tongues that do not speak Latin, songs that drift through dark pine forests. The world beyond Rome is stirring. The division of the empire. In time, Rome grows too vast for one pair of hands to hold. The emperors, tired of unrest, decide to divide the realm, east and west. 2 halves of a single dream, 2 hearts beating beneath one name. In the east, a new capital rises, Constantinople, shimmering upon the waters of the Bosporus, half city, half reflection of stars. In the west, the old city of Rome remains resolute, its monuments proud but quiet now, its people living among the ruins of their own greatness. It is not a fall, it is a slow exhale. An empire breathing out after centuries of holding its breath. The invasions. From beyond the forests and the steppe, new peoples move, the Goths, the Vandals, the Huns. To them, Rome is a story of gold and glory, and like all stories, it calls them closer. They come not as monsters, but as wanderers, drawn by the promise of shelter, of land, of belonging. Sometimes they fight, sometimes they serve within Roman armies, sometimes they settle quietly, building homes where once legions stood guard. The empire, once the world's centre, becomes instead a mosaic of new and old, Roman and not Roman, fused together by need, by time, by the inevitable compassion of history. The sack of Rome, in the year 410. For the first time in nearly 800 years, foreign soldiers enter the eternal city. It is night. The streets are empty save for the flicker of firelight. They do not come to destroy completely, only to take what they can. To the Romans, it feels like the sky itself has broken. But the city does not end. It bends, endures, and waits. As dawn arrives, the smoke fades, and among the ruins, you can still hear the sound of water, the whisper of fountains still flowing, as they always have. The last emperor. By the late 5th century, only shadows of the Western Empire remain. The Senate still meets, tired men in faded robes, their voices echoing in a nearly empty hall. In the year 476, a quiet event passes into legend. A boy emperor named Romulus Augustulus is dethroned by a general of German birth. No battle, no parade, just silence. And with that, the empire of the West comes softly to an end. But endings are rarely absolute. The East continues, strong and radiant, for nearly another 1,000 years. And even when the last emperor there has gone, the dream of Rome endures, woven through language, law, and art, the legacy. Think of what remains. The roads, still etched across Europe and the Near East, carrying footsteps, bicycles, cars, and whispers. The language, its echoes in Spanish, in Italian, in French. The architecture, arches, domes, columns, copied again and again by empires yet to come. The ideas of citizenship, of justice, of governance. All of it, born from a few huts on 7 hills beside a sleepy river in Italy. Rome never truly fell. It changed. It became everyone's story. The dream of Rome now, as you rest in the quiet dark. Imagine yourself walking once more along the old Via Appia, the ancient road leading from the heart of the city. Grass grows where chariot wheels once cut grooves in the stones. Cypress trees line the path, their shadows long and gentle. In the distance, perhaps, you can hear the faint song of the Tiber. The stars above are bright and endless, just as they were 2,000 years ago. You pause and realize that the air is still full of Rome, its courage, its mistakes, its longing for greatness. It breathes through every age that followed. In every city lit at night, in every courtroom, every poem, every quiet act of creation, Rome lives the silence. After the empire, eventually, civilizations fade. But silence is never empty. It holds the memory of all that was. The laughter in marble courtyards, the prayers whispered in darkened temples, the rhythm of sandals on worn stone. Listen closely, and you can almost hear it. Not loss, but continuity. A soft reminder that what humans build in spirit never disappears completely. The fire that once burned in Vesta's temple is gone now, but its echo remains in the warmth of our homes, the lights of our streets, the quiet comfort of knowledge shared. This is the true eternity Rome sought, and it found it in us. Take one last deep breath. Let it go. The story of Rome now drifts into your dreams, not as clashing armor or falling walls, but as a gentle hum beneath the surface of everything we know. You are safe. You are calm. You are resting in the long sleep of history. And now, as the last echoes of ancient Rome fade into the quiet night, take one more deep, slow breath. You've walked through centuries tonight, from the dawn of shepherds on the hills of the Tiber, to the marble glow of empire, to the peaceful twilight where history becomes dream. Let it all drift away now, the names, the battles, the ruins, leaving only the calm stillness of everything Rome passed on, its courage, its art, its love of life. As you sink deeper into rest, remember, the story of the world hums softly all around you. Every breath you take is another step through time. Thank you for listening and for resting here with me tonight. If you enjoyed this journey, you can join me again soon for another quiet passage through the past, told softly, peacefully, and always with care. For now, close your eyes, release the day, and let the whispers of history guide you gently into dreams. Good night, and sleep well.